All right, everybody, welcome back to Beans No Ball. Once again, we continue with our NFL preview, getting into the NFC South. Now, this division, obviously known as the laughing stock of the league as of late, one of the worst divisions of football, but they get some new life breathed into with some key additions, some changes going into it. So, I guess let's get started. We've been pretty much identical on our predictions, so let's see if that changes in this. Christian, let's get started with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, so this Buccaneers team, biggest thing they did this offseason was give Baker that extension that I would say that we both agreed that he did deserve. This one here, with all the tension that he's had in the past couple of years with the Browns and the Panthers, those are the two main guys, two main teams that he's really had issues with. But coming into this new life with this Buccaneers team, really
new life.
Oh yeah, you're right. After that Raider game gave him new life after he beat him, and that one Thursday night. But
it gave him like a new purpose in football, and for what it's worth, I can take a little bit of credit for his resurgence.
Yeah, you can obviously say that, and then obviously him here now with the Bucs, going to be there for another couple more years, really setting the tone for here. Really, this offense and this defense, it looks pretty much the same here, but they lose a couple people here. But there's pretty much the same exact team here, and it's all going to rely on Baker after getting the extension if he's going to have another improved season.
Well, offensively, I guess you can say it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, the extension for Baker, obviously, and we also, the extension for Mike Evans. There was some worry that he could be on his way out. They kept him locked up, so that's going to be a big thing, keeping his top weapon. And honestly, Chris Godwin still has good enough left in the tank. My main thing is going to be on defense, and sure, they kept, forget who specifically, their big name in the secondary. It's eluding.
Antoine Winfield.
Winfield, he got the extension.
That's he got the signing.
Antoine Winfield got his new contract, and that's going to be probably their key spot on defense. But they lost Devin White. Shaq Barrett was traded and then retired, and they lost Carlton Davis, which we just talked about in that last video, who's going to be a big help to that Lions defense. Losing these three pieces, I mean, to me, that's going to be a big impact. I don't think Antoine Winfield's going to be able to just do it all on his own. So. The defensively, I could possibly say we could see some struggles, but the one thing offensively, as much as they kept the team around, we know how Baker is. We know he's on that roller coaster trajectory. Like what he said. When he started so good in Cleveland, had some issues in Carolina. Are we due for another Baker skid? And I wouldn't want to say that, but it's just the reality of his career, how it's gone, and he lost the guy that honestly gave him new life in this offense, in Dave Canales. He's off back in another team in this division that we'll get to in just a bit, but I honestly think that we could see Baker due for a little skid.
Yeah, honestly, looking at the trajectory and what this is, I'm still really, really rooting for Baker here, but this offense and the O-line outside of Tristan Wirfs, it's going to be an end Barton, you could say there. It's going to be another icky way to look at it, but the running backs with Rachaad White, him taking the running spot. They picked up Bucky Irving in the draft there, at the second string here. But you can say Baker's taking a skid. I still think Baker's gonna have a really good life here, but I think it's gonna be this defense on why the Buccaneers are not going to succeed. Now, I guess finally moving into the teams we're kind of see some new stuff here, but the New Orleans Saints. Yeah. Now, obviously, a lot of issues with this New Orleans Saints team was because of Derek Carr, him at the quarterback. There's another team with the quarterback issue. It's a really big spot in this offense of why this team's not succeed. I mean, you got a lot of weapons on this offense. You got Alvin Kamara, who I'm hoping he's going to have a really big boost this season, coming back to his old sub. You guys picked up Jamal Williams in the offseason, who I think is going to make another huge impact at this second string. You got Chris Olave, and then outside of that, you have Shaheed, who's another young guy who can really have some air in this offense.
I mean, he's a solid third option in the offense. So I could definitely see. No, I could see Shaheed having his success. Yeah. I mean, I remember in the Thursday nighter against the Rams that I went to, he definitely had his success.
Oh yeah, he had some life.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see something for him. I mean, obviously you lose Mike Thomas, who was already on the downturn.
He's already on his way out.
That's honestly a good thing that he's off this team. Probably something that you don't want to really see, but
it gives more life for this young. It gives a better breathing room for these young guys, not having to worry about
specifically a lot,
let alone exactly.
And I mean, like the one thing, I mean, I'm just not high on this team. I'll just be honest. I mean, the one thing for me is like, how long until we unleash the Rattler? That's the big thing,
Rattler.
I
know Carter's loving that one.
I genuinely believe Spencer Rattler is going to get his opportunity this season, probably around week 11. I made my call with Will Levis last year. I'm going to make it with Rattler this year. I genuinely think, he'll be in there by week 11. And the one thing I will say, didn't really, add to, well, okay, look, defensively, they did add Chase Young and Willie Gay. So I guess you breathe new life into this defense. But offensively, you might not think about it much, but losing Jameis Winston, that's going to take a big hit on that locker room. And I think, some moments where, times can get tough and he would have lifted them back up, they're not going to have him to help inspire. And I think, you don't think about that, but, that could be a big impact.
Yeah, and you're like, I know we've been talking about it for a bit, but we're expecting the Rattler to probably take over Derek Carr's spot. I'm going to call it mid-season. You said, what did you say, week 11 or week 10?
I said week 11.
I'm going to call it, week 8. I'm going to still call it, one of the single digits there. So I'm going to call it really early on. I guess you could say early on, mid-season into this year here. I think Derek Carr is going to be the reason this team's going to struggle here. And it's just another wasted potential for, Chris Olave to finally have an actual quarterback to, help boost this team for once. Now moving on to the third place team, which is the Atlanta Falcons. And oh boy, this Falcons team, they had a great offseason. You could even say they had a pretty mid draft here, but this free agencies were really carrying them here. They got Kirk Cousins, that really big, huge deal. So this Falcons team finally has a good quarterback leading them this season here. Looking at and then the big story right here is getting Michael Penix at I believe it was the 8th pick, right?
Pick. Yeah.
They got Michael Penix at the 8th pick. He's uncle already,
I'll just be honest, I hate that pick. I'm still gonna say it.
A lot of people hated that pick just because of his age, right? By the time Kirk's gone, he's gonna be like, what, 28, 29 in his late 20s? So that's already gonna take
late 20s.
Unless, some magical thing happens, the situation with Kirk doesn't work out, he's gonna get the early start, or like 2-3 years, just like another Jordan Love situation here. But that's not always gonna pan out just like how Jordan Love did. But when we're looking at the running backs, you got Bijan Robinson, and now that Arthur Smith's gone, I'm gonna expect Bijan to have a really bigger role in the running game there. And then Tyler Algier, who's another underrated guy in this league here. I know a lot of people, they look past Algier here, but he's a nice running back to have. And then when we're looking at this receiver room, Drake London, who, I'm really expected to have a really good season here with finally Kirk at QB, Darnell Mooney, who, he's had some, I guess you could say he's a pretty competent receiver too. And then Raymond McLeod. He's still got some spots to show. And the Kyle Pitts, who a lot of people, they still expected to break out. You're high on him there. But with Kirk at QB, this could finally happen. But on defense, they boosted this defense up. Probably the biggest signing here is they got Matt Judon from the Patriots for basically pennies. And that's really going to boost up that front seven there. And then this secondary, you have AJ Terrell, Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates. That's going to be a nice,
you can argue that's probably duo. The best trio in the secondary, probably in the whole league. And I mean, the one thing you can say about their additions defensively is Simmons and Judon, they are getting up there in age. So maybe, you don't want to think about this, they could both be due for regressions. It could be this year, it could be next year, but it's coming. And for the Falcons' sake, let's hope it's not just yet. They could stick around and, really grow this defense. But taking it back to the receiving room, someone you forgot. They picked up Rondell Moore once they finally got rid of Desmond Ridder, which thankfully they finally got rid of him. And I think Rondell Moore at the start of the season, I was expecting him to really battle that Darnell Mooney for that second spot. But unfortunately, forget what week of the preseason, if it was first or second week, he came down with a big injury, don't remember what, but as we talked about earlier, he's going to be on IR. He's going to miss the entire season, if I'm not mistaken, right?
So, he's out for the season.
Yeah, so that does hurt. I was expecting him to be another huge boost for this receiving room, but regardless of that, like what you were saying, all these weapons, they finally have a competent quarterback, and I think it's going to be it's going to be, just a huge boost overall. Only thing, I guess, apart from that I can really think, you could say, as much as Kyle Pitts, he's going to, really have that huge role that I'm expecting, but also Jonnu Smith, it could be a little bit of a setback that, having that second option to take some of the load off of Pitts, might not think about it much, but it could have been something to think about down the line. And we'll move it into the absolute bottom of the barrel in the Carolina Panthers now. Sure, they were pretty terrible last year. That's no mistake about that. 2-15. I think
I think terrible is an understatement, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta figure out a new word for that. But I mean, look, they absolutely overhauled the team. They picked up wide receiver Deontay Johnson, who's someone that I'm really excited to see. And obviously in the draft, seeing Xavier Legette, looking at this trio with Adam Thielen, I think that gives Bryce Young a really big opportunity to really grow in his second year. And speaking of his growth, the new head coach in Dave Canales, we've just heard over and over the quarterback whisperer that he's been. Something that I talked about in our Breakout Stars video, that I have definitely high hopes for Bryce Young. I think for Dave Canales, you know, the things that he's done not only for Baker last year, but Geno Smith 2 years ago, I definitely have a lot of really high hopes. And look at this defense that they picked up. I mean, sure, they lost some of their best players in Brian Burns, Frankie Louvu, and Jeremy Chin, but you had guys like Jadeveon Clowney, who might be kind of over.
He is starting on the end agent's part.
But in that secondary, two former Ram safeties that, you know, I could definitely expect to have some good success. Jordan Fuller and Nick Scott, some guys that, you know, I really do think can kind of pick up the load on some of the guys that the Panthers lost in the offseason.
Yeah, this Panthers team, look, they did a lot of stuff this offseason with the head coach that with Canales, and obviously look, his relationship with sorry, I'm spazzing out there. His relationship with Bryce Young, it's already starting to pick up, and that's a really good sign to see. Obviously, you want your coach and your young quarterback to build a relationship this early on, you know, get that duo going here. And obviously, look, like you mentioned, this receiver room, there's a lot of here with Legette, Johnson, Thielen, and then they got Mingo, who, you know, not really much to say about him there, but again, a lot of this, it's going to rely on this O-line once again. We saw that O-line once last season for Bryce Young. I know I had my shit in the bucket for Bryce Young here, but let's be real. This O-line was kind of a really big detriment to this offense here. Now, that's
in the offseason, they did pick up guys like
exactly.
Robert and Damian Lewis, so you could definitely expect them. And this is, again, something I mentioned in that last video about him breaking out. We saw that Packers game, how when the offensive line gives him time, he definitely is a different quarterback.
Exactly. So really going to expect hopefully some good things for Bryce Young this season here, but I do think it's going to be some time for this kind of Panthers team to kind of pick off from the ones left out there. Now that obviously that is our take on these four teams of this detriment NFC South here. Now moving right on to the predictions here. Now let's see, we got some parity here. So at the one, I'm gonna go with the Falcons at 11-6 here. I feel that this is finally the Falcons to finally get this season going with a competent quarterback leading the way with Kirk Cousins. As I mentioned here, Drake London is going to be good. He is going to be the X factor on this defense. It's going to be the part with the new guys they have added. At second place, I have the Buccaneers. I have them going 10-7. I have them just missing the playoffs in this one here. I'm still going to root for Baker on this one. Baker's going to he's going to fight with all his will here, but some miscues on that team with the little holes that they have could be one of the big reasons there. I got the Panthers up next, and this could be hot, but I got the Panthers going 9-8. So I got them going above 100 this season. I do feel Bryce Young, he's going to pick it up there, but like I mentioned a little just right now, it's going to take a couple time. In the bottom of the barrel, I got the Saints. I got them going 7-10. It's going to be another down year for the Saints team, especially with this quarterback situation going along the way here. I would expect Derek Carr to be out of his way, out of New Orleans by the end of the season.
Well, I mean, I think
Jesus,
it's not exactly.
Okay,
you know,
okay.
We didn't get it exactly, but
okay.
It's pretty similar. And I guess the records might have a little bit of difference. But
okay.
First place for me, I got the Falcons at 10-7. I think the weapons are definitely gonna give Cousins, a lot of success. I mean, just the main thing, we've seen all the weapons the Falcons have, and to have a real quarterback, there's no doubt they're going to succeed, and I do have high hopes for the defense. But moving to second place, I got the Panthers, but I got them at 8-9. So I got them at second, you got them at third with a better record than I did. But we'll digress. People just write them off because it's the Panthers, but realistically they improved a lot, and they're in a still relatively weak division. So I could definitely see Bryce Young's development continue and have a really solid year. And in the third place, I got the Buccaneers 7-10. it pains me to do this to Baker, but I think he's due for that skid. I think he's due to come back down to earth just a little bit. And is Mike Evans due for a bit of a regression? That's going to be one of my hot takes going into the season. He might. Does he go under 1,000 yards? And let's just think about
everyone's gonna lose their minds if that happens. Everyone's gonna lose their minds.
And I definitely think it's a possibility going in as he gets up there in age. But in last place, I don't know if it counts as that much of a hot take, but I guess in my mind it kind of does. I'll have the Saints at 3-14. I am extremely low on Derek Carr this season. Maybe I should have said that the Rattler comes in just a little earlier, but honestly, I think that Dennis Allen, not the smartest head coach in all honesty, so I think he's gonna still ride out with him a bit. He probably gets fired around the time that Rattler comes in, and I think maybe not in the win column, but I think Rattler's gonna see some success and help the Saints going into next season. But yeah, once again, I mean, we got one division left. I don't think there's gonna be too much difference there. So I think at least our playoff bracket does have some parity. So once we get into our final video, getting into Wednesday morning, we'll really get to see that. But that's gonna do it for us here. One video left to determine all of our preseason, regular season records going into the rest of our preview. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you like and subscribe, and be sure to come back tomorrow morning for the NFC West preview. Pretty big one for me.